in the AWS-3 auctions. The question you get all the time, you get it on the call, you'll get it from me right now. What are you going to do with all of this wireless spectrum that no one believes you are going to spend the $40 or $50 billion to build your own network to build out?
I think you have to look at it a little bit broader. I think 5 years ago, we're on a quest, and we're probably 5 years into a 10-year plan, but that really was to transform the company from just a distribution company of video through satellite television to really a connectivity company. So if you think about where the world is going with everything in the cloud, you're going to have to be connected to the cloud, and one of the ways that you can be connected to that cloud is through only two ways. One's the wire, and one's wirelessly. If you're going to do it wirelessly, you're going to need spectrum. So the first step in that quest then is to acquire spectrum, which we've obviously done quite a bit over the last 5 years. And then you take that spectrum and you work with. We don't have the scale of some of the incumbents, so we'll work with those people who want to work with us.
But who is that? Well, I think you have almost as much spectrum as T-Mobile. I mean, just to put it in some perspective, it's not an insignificant spectrum position you have.
I think there's two big guys with scale, and they also have low band spectrum. So that really it's an oligopoly, two companies in the wireless world. So I think there's people who aren't named AT&T and Verizon who are interested in scale. I think there's people who perhaps not are in the industry but not in the United States. And I think there's people who need connectivity. They need it. They use it every day. But they want to make sure that continues to be available to them. So I think there's any number of people who are going to want to play in that market.
All right. Well, when I hear you say you use connectivity every day and need it, I think Google. Are you talking to Google?
Well, we've done business with Google. Remember when Google TV first came out, we were the original partners of that. Of course, now they've got the Nexus product that's coming out. So we've worked with Google in the past, and they also are potentially a competitor. Obviously, with YouTube and so forth, they're in the video business as well. So I think there's just going to be a lot of moving parts. It's going to be a very competitive industry, and we're going to be we hope to be part of the equation, part of the talk.
When we've talked in the past, and I think I can share, you've talked to me about optionality. Now, this was some time ago, but sort of ticking off in your fingers all the different things. Has the hand shrunk at all? I mean, or do you still think that you've got all these different roads that you can go down? Granted, you have time still to build out this spectrum, but time goes by fast. 2017, 2020, and 21. I mean, it will be here. You've got to make some decisions, I would say.
We do, and I think, but let's take a short term. Short term, the auction was important to us, and with our partners, right, we own 85% of a couple of small businesses that want a fair amount of spectrum. We're able to do two things. One is we're able to now have the option to go all downlink with our existing spectrum, and obviously downlink is more important, is more valuable than uplink. In fact, we have as much downlink spectrum as Verizon does. So that gives us something. Then there's interoperability. You can't enter the marketplace if your spectrum's not in the handset. So obviously our spectrum is not in handsets today. So with interoperability, particularly the AWS-3 spectrum, as a mandate by the FCC, we're going to be able to, that gives us a lot of more flexibility than we had before. So our short-term focus now is to go through the regulatory process to make sure that the licenses are issued, right? And then go through what the world standards, the 3GPP process, to make sure that our spectrum is in licensed bands so they can go into handsets. And all that's going to take a bit of time. And then we'll see where it goes from there. But as you do that, we have a key component to where people want to be connected and people want to be in that business and people want to monetize that business. We're going to be part of the equation.
And the stock has done quite well in part because people keep valuing your spectrum based on at least the most recent sale and the auction and say, well, it's worth a great deal. Although there are others, Charlie, who wonder, well, one day when they actually have to put this stuff to use, perhaps we're going to see that the returns are not what we expect.
Yeah. I mean, obviously, ultimately, our spectrum value is going to be based on the discounted cash flows that you can generate from that.
Right. Although it's not right now.
But of course, we're not able to do that
just
today.
For a pop on what people are willing to pay for.
I think what the auction did this was the first auction. First, the FCC. Congratulations to the FCC. They set up the rules with blind bidding, things that Verizon has supported in the past, and small businesses participation. That was going to maximize the profit, maximize the amount of money they were going to take in. But it was also the first auction in what I would call the post-data era. So in auctions previously, spectrum was valued on voice calls and texting, but now it's all about data. And of course, data is exploding, data usage is exploding. So auction values, not only in the United States, but also a recent auction in Canada, all are coming to these much greater values, which, we had talked about and we had predicted that people were underestimating the value of spectrum. So that's now all come to pass. And then you've got to go make a business out of it.
Well, would you consider just selling all of it? I mean, no stranger to you. People say, well, Verizon, even though you seemingly competed against them in some markets and won those markets in the auction, nonetheless, there are people who believe they would buy you. Would you sell?
Well, our dream is to enter the marketplace and compete. So we competed in the auction. We did the right thing. We competed for the first time. AT&T and Verizon didn't win all the spectrum. They won most of it, but they didn't win all of it. And we hope we can compete. But you've got two big mergers that are in front of the telecommunications mergers. We have to see what happens with those mergers. We have to see how we're competitive. We got a lot of competitors coming into our space. We've got Sony. We've got
I know you're
Apple.
We're getting a lot of other questions I want to ask. So let's start on a couple of those. Although I don't want to. You still didn't give me any answers on spectrum.
Yeah.
You just say you're talking to everybody, but you never actually say anything about what you're really planning to do. Do you not know?
Well, first of all, we don't know for sure what we're going to do. And I think as an entrepreneur, when you build a business, when we started out in 1980 with one big dish, we didn't know what we were going to do. And so I think you gain confidence as a management team and that no matter what happens, that there's paradigm shifts in technology, and there's a lot going on in the wireless industry and technology. And we think that we'll be able to craft a business plan, right, that will maximize the value of our spectrum. And again, we think as a result of that, that's how the spectrum will have value. That's how our company will have value. That's how we'll be relevant in a very competitive market.
Right, and with the hope being that you will enter the marketplace in partnership, one has to assume, but as a competitor to AT&T and Verizon.
I mean,
not just getting bought by Verizon.
I mean, that would certainly be our dream that we could do that. Now, there's things will happen there's things outside of your control. So the government will look at mergers. There'll be other business transactions that will take place, and you may moved in one direction or another. We're not suicidal. We're gonna run the company for the benefit of our employees and for our shareholders, right? But we think whatever we do with our spectrum, it'll be for the long-term value creation that we think we can get. And we're long-term players. It's one of the great advantages we've had is that when we started buying spectrum really 6 or 7 years ago, the market didn't like that, and our stock went down, right? And then 6 or 7 years later, people realized the value of the spectrum, and your stock goes up. So had we not done that, we would have had no option but to sell our company. And obviously, to DirecTV's credit, as they got in that situation, they sold out at a pretty good premium, really at probably the height of the marketplace. And they really had nowhere to go in the United States.
Right, because as you've said many times in your call, you're in a mature business. I want to talk a bit about that business. First, we're owned by Comcast, of course, but do you think the deal is going to be blocked by antitrust regulators, Comcast, Time Warner Cable?
My crystal ball is probably not better than anybody else's, but I think it should be blocked. And the reason is I don't think you can give that connectivity. You can't give one company over the majority of the homes in the United States for that high-speed broadband access. So even when you can try to compete with things like, whether it be Dish Network or now Sling TV, Sling TV still needs that connectivity to the house. They still need that broadband connection, that high-speed connection. And in that merger, over 50% would be controlled by Comcast.
You've been outspoken in your opposition to the deal, of course. Are you getting any feedback from regulators that your concerns are being heeded and perhaps that they are moving down a road that might result in them trying to block it?
We're not getting feedback, but having gone through our own mergers,
and having been blocked years ago, of course, with Direct,
and having been blocked, I can say I have a great deal of respect for the regulators. They do their homework. They'll make the right decision, whatever that decision is. They'll do that with consumers in mind, and I think they'll make the right decision. I don't know what that decision is going to make. I don't have the information that they have. I'd have kind of a big picture view of it.
Given them information, at least I would assume from your perspective as to why you think it's anti-competitive.
Well, certainly we respond to their request for information. From a big picture perspective, we just think that there's nothing there's no conditions you can put on that massive of merger
in terms of the broadband connectivity. In terms of Sling TV, which you've mentioned, it's just been rolled out. How's it going?
Well, certainly we're in our 6th week, so certainly the results are encouraging. It's certainly we're in a marketplace that up until a few years ago, everything was exactly the same. A big bundle, you're paying almost $100 a month as a consumer. You're buying a lot of channels you don't necessarily want, and so as a result, we went the whole generation that hasn't become pay TV subscribers. And we've had millions of people who've actually cut the cord as it relates to TV and aren't paid, or they're going to other segments like YouTube. I mean, like to Netflix, YouTube, and so forth. So, with our programming partners, we've said, why don't we go get some of those people that haven't been in the business before, or in some cases, give choice to people who might be ready to cut the cord.
Right.
And so, take a college kid. He loves sports. Right? He has high-speed internet access in his dorm, but he doesn't have $100 a month to pay for TV. Well, he's pretty happy with $20 a month and getting all his ESPN and all his channels
Do
to watch the games.
you cannibalize your own business eventually, or is it really reaching a different market?
It will cannibalize our business. There's no question about that. I mean, it's an innovator's dilemma, right? Do you not take new technology and invest in new technology to protect your old technology? We don't. We view it that we have to do that. We have to reinvent ourselves. We have to transform the company. But we certainly, the vast majority of our customers today are certainly people who are not in the pay TV universe today. So it's incremental business to our programming partners, and better yet, it's a better advertising model for them because it's a one-to-one relationship with the consumer.
Right.
So we can introduce ads that are one-to-one.
Now you're out there, of course, but you're going to be joined by a lot of different potential competitors. Sony, you brought up on the most recent conference call, is perhaps having a pretty robust offering. Do you think that'll be the case? Apple TV, will that be a competitor to you? Give me a sense as to the competitive landscape for these offerings.
You know, as long as the internet is open, but that is a caveat. Then I think there's going to be. And I think it's a very similar generic business, which is now mature with a big bundle. There's going to be a ton of competitors coming, right? And there's going to be different segments. So Sony is going after a different segment. They got quite a nice product. It's out now, and I think in some few cities. And it's a bigger bundle, but it's quite a nice product. Very good user interface. Obviously, Apple. You know that's going to be a good product.
You do? You know it's going to be.
Well, you know it's going to be. It's Apple. So I think a betting man would say pretty good chance that's going to be a good product. You have people like HBO who are really going direct. CBS has gone direct to consumers. Nickelodeon has gone. Our Viacom has gone with one or two of the channels direct to consumers. That's one model. The other model is more of a hybrid model where you might go direct, but you might also go through your current distribution or other distribution. And then the way we've done it with Sling is we're going with our programming partners to the consumer. It's it's very similar to how we do business today.
We are at the beginning of a new era, it would seem, in terms of my ability to choose how I want to watch things and how I want to pay for them. Of course, it always comes back to the big question: will the bundle finally just break apart? You know, and I mean, you still rely on that bundle. No, I've got 14 million people who are paying you every month for that bundle.
I'd say it a different way. I think if you got 2 or 3 kids and you get diverse, you and your wife watch different things, the bundle's still going to be the best deal for your family. But again, if you're that college student or you're getting your first job and you're moving into your first apartment, then you're going to probably go after a skinny down package because you just can't afford $100 a month, or maybe you don't have kids and you don't want to pay for children's programming, right? Or you don't watch sports and you don't want to pay for sports. In the future, there's going to be offerings for you that appeal to your budget and appeal to your taste. But for the majority of people, for a long time, the big bundle is still going to be a better deal because when you bundle it all together, you get a better price on everything.
Right, so that will stay with us.
I think it'll stay
while we have a lot of these other offerings. Real quick, a couple of quick things to hit. I mean, if you spend more money in the next auction, are you going to need to raise money through an equity offering?
Well, we'd certainly like to participate in the incentive auction. We'll have to wait and see what the rules are. I think any time that you can get more people in an auction and make it more competitive, that's better. Obviously, we would need the amount of money that probably will take for that auction. We probably need to raise capital or partner with somebody to do it. But we'll have to wait and see.
You're never really going to sell this company, are you?
Look, I think when you start a company, you hope it survives. You know, I think there's one company in the original, the original 30. I think there's one company. I think GE's left, right? I mean, AT&T replaced by somebody.
Yep.
Right?
Just not by Apple.
By Apple. So, you hope that you can, when you start a company, it lives well beyond, me and other people. So we hope that happens. But again, we're going to do the right thing for our employees and for our shareholders at the end of the day.
Charlie, we got to leave it there, but not as always. As for the first time, thank you for joining us.
Thanks, Dave.
And I look forward to future appearances that don't have that much time between them.
All right, great. Thanks.
Charles Ergen, founder.